In just 42 seconds, $8.7 billion in EU climate funds vanished into undisclosed accounts. Ursula von der Leyen didn't wait for parliamentary questions. She gathered her papers and signaled to her security detail. The cameras captured everything. The European Parliament fell into stunned silence. What did Viktor Orbán reveal that made the most powerful woman in Europe flee her own podium? I witnessed something unprecedented in the halls of Strasbourg today, something that will reshape European politics forever. The Hungarian Prime Minister didn't just challenge the Commission President, he detonated a political nuclear bomb that has sent shockwaves through every capital from Berlin to Rome. After 15 years covering EU politics, I thought I had seen every scandal. The deleted text messages during COVID vaccine negotiations, the luxury travel expenses hidden in development aid budgets. But nothing prepared me for what unfolded today. At exactly 14:23 CET, Orbán stood up during what should have been a routine budget review session. He wasn't holding the usual parliamentary papers. Instead, he carried a black leather dossier marked with a single word in red ink, confidential. But there was something else. A small USB drive clipped to the folder's edge, the kind that usually contains financial databases or encrypted communications. I noticed something crucial that the cameras missed. Orbán's legal advisor had been filming everything on his phone since 1420, 3 minutes before the confrontation began. This wasn't spontaneous. This was a carefully orchestrated political operation designed for maximum media impact. The atmosphere in the chamber shifted instantly. You could feel the tension crackling like electricity before a thunderstorm. MEPs who had been scrolling through their phones suddenly looked up. Translators leaned closer to their microphones, frantically adjusting their headsets. Even the security personnel sensed something extraordinary was about to unfold. Von der Leyen, still at the podium, glanced nervously at her notes. I watched her body language change in real time. The confident shoulder position from moments earlier gave way to a subtle defensive stance. She knew. Somehow, she already knew this wasn't going to be a standard parliamentary question. Von der Leyen was mid-sentence, explaining the technical details of the Green Deal implementation timeline, when Orbán requested the floor under Article 162 of the parliamentary rules. The moderator had no choice but to grant it. What followed was 42 seconds that will be dissected by political analysts for decades to come. Madam President, Orbán began, his voice cutting through the chamber with surgical precision. I have here documented evidence of financial irregularities that directly implicate your office. He opened the dossier. Transaction reference EU CD 88473992. Date, September 15, 2025. Amount, $8.7 billion transferred to shell companies registered in Malta and Luxembourg. He held up the first document, a bank transfer receipt with official EU letterhead. Then came the second page. Recipient entity, Malta Holding 447B, incorporated 3 days before receiving these funds. No employees. No physical address beyond a postal box. His voice remained steady, but each word landed like a hammer blow. The silence was deafening. I've covered European politics for over a decade, and I've never seen an entire parliament freeze like that. It was as if someone had pressed pause on reality itself. I watched German MEP Manfred Weber's face drain of color. French Representative Nathalie Loiseau stopped mid-sentence in what appeared to be a heated whisper with her colleague. The Italian delegation sat motionless, faces reflecting the same shocked comprehension spreading through the chamber. Von der Leyen's reaction was immediate and telling. Her face, usually a mask of diplomatic composure, went pale. Her hands, which had been gesturing confidently just moments before, gripped the podium edge. For 3 excruciating seconds, she said nothing. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every micro-expression. These funds, Orbán continued, his tone remaining deadly calm, were allocated for Eastern European renewable energy infrastructure. Yet according to this banking documentation, they were diverted through a subsidiary of GreenTech Dynamics, a consulting firm that lists Dr. Heiko von der Leyen as a board member. That's when the chamber erupted. Not in applause or jeers, but in something far more dangerous. Confused murmurs and the rustling of papers as MEPs frantically searched their own documents for verification. The personal connection Orbán had just exposed was devastating. Dr. Heiko von der Leyen, the Commission president's husband, serving on the board of a company that allegedly received misdirected EU climate funds. If proven true, this wasn't just a financial scandal. This was a conflict of interest that would end careers and potentially bring down the entire Commission. The Green Deal, von der Leyen's flagship policy, suddenly looked like a potential money laundering operation designed to benefit her family's business interests. Every vote, every regulation, every climate target was now suspect. Von der Leyen attempted a response. "These accusations are baseless and procedurally inappropriate," she began, but her voice lacked its usual authority. The confidence that had carried her through 5 years as Commission president was cracking in real time. Orbán wasn't finished. He produced a second document, Transfer Authorization Code VDL 2025 Urgent, he read aloud, signed digitally at 11:47 p.m. on a Sunday evening, bypassing the standard approval process that requires 3 Commission signatures. The implications hit the chamber like a physical blow. Emergency authorizations are reserved for natural disasters or security crises. Using them for routine fund transfers is not just irregular, it's potentially criminal. I watched as Green Party MEPs, usually von der Leyen's staunchest allies, began whispering urgently among themselves. The German delegation looked mortified. Even Charles Michel, typically unflappable, was seen checking his phone repeatedly. But Orbán saved his most devastating revelation for last. From the dossier, he extracted a printed email thread. Internal Commission communication, dated October 3, 2025, he announced. Subject line, family considerations in green tech approval process. He didn't read the full content. He didn't need to. The subject line alone told the entire story. The Commission president had been discussing her family's financial interests while making decisions about EU fund allocations. That's when von der Leyen made her fatal mistake. Instead of demanding a formal investigation to clear her name, instead of calling for transparent scrutiny of the documents, she chose escape. At 14:26 CET, she stepped away from the microphone. Her security detail moved closer. The live feed captured her mouthing something to her chief of staff. Lip readers later suggested it was emergency protocol. Within 90 seconds, she was gone. The chamber sat in stunned silence for nearly a full minute after her departure. The moderator, visibly shaken, called for a suspension of the session. But the damage was done. The most powerful position in European governance had just been abandoned in the face of direct accusations. The media reaction was instant and brutal. Within minutes, Jas von der Leyen Gate was trending across 17 countries. News outlets that had spent years defending Commission policies suddenly found themselves scrambling to fact-check Orbán's claims. The financial markets responded even faster. The euro dropped 1.2% against the dollar in the first hour after news of the confrontation broke. European banking stocks plummeted as investors realized that a Commission collapse could destabilize the entire regulatory framework. Deutsche Bank fell 3.4%. BNP Paribas dropped 2.8%. But the most telling reaction came from Brussels itself. The Commission building went into lockdown mode. Press briefings were canceled. Staff were told to avoid media contact. Why? Because Orbán had done something no one thought possible. He had produced documentation that the Commission couldn't immediately dismiss or debunk. These weren't conspiracy theories or political allegations. These were bank records, email threads, and transaction receipts. The Hungarian Prime Minister had clearly been planning this moment for months, possibly years. The precision of his documentation, the timing of his revelation, None of this was spontaneous. This was a calculated political assassination carried out with surgical precision. As I write this, 12 hours after the confrontation, von der Leyen has still not issued a public response. Her office released a brief statement claiming that all Commission financial procedures follow established protocols, but failed to address the specific allegations. The European Public Prosecutor's Office has confirmed they are reviewing the materials, diplomatic language for launching a formal investigation. If criminal charges follow, von der Leyen's political career is over. Even if they don't, the damage to her credibility may be irreparable. But this story isn't just about one politician's potential downfall. It's about the crack in the foundation of European integration itself. For decades, EU institutions have operated on the assumption that technocratic competence could transcend national politics. Orbán has shattered that assumption. He's shown that even the most powerful European office can be held accountable, that no position is immune from scrutiny, and that political loyalty has limits when faced with documented evidence of misconduct. The question now isn't whether von der Leyen can survive this scandal. The question is whether the European Commission itself can maintain legitimacy while its president remains under criminal investigation. Orbán hasn't just exposed alleged corruption, he's demonstrated that the entire Brussels edifice is more fragile than anyone imagined. France's Emmanuel Macron now faces the humiliation of defending the indefensible. Germany's Olaf Scholz must decide whether to sacrifice his European ally to save his own political skin. For decades, European integration has been sold as a technocratic solution to political problems. Orbán has shattered that promise. He's shown that technocracy without accountability is just another word for corruption. In 42 seconds, Viktor Orbán didn't just expose alleged financial corruption. He exposed the fundamental vulnerability of institutions that have grown too comfortable with their own power. The hidden truth he revealed wasn't just about misdirected funds, it was about the dangerous gap between European democracy and European governance. The era of unquestioned EU authority ended today in Strasbourg. What comes next will determine whether European integration survives this crisis, adapts to become more transparent and accountable, or whether Orbán's revelations mark the beginning of the end for the Brussels project itself. If this analysis has changed your understanding of European power dynamics, subscribe and hit the notification bell. The next 48 hours will determine whether we're witnessing a political scandal or a constitutional crisis. This account is dramatized for analytical and educational purposes.